We do not pay ransom for hostages. We've got a number of Americans being held all around the world. And I meet with their families. And it is heartbreaking. And we have stood up an entire section of interagency experts who devote all their time to working with these families to get these Americans out. But those families know that we have a policy that we don't pay ransom.
Welcome back to The Lead. New outrage on Capitol Hill today after Obama administration officials briefed lawmakers about 2 other cash payments to Iran. Sources tell CNN that in addition to the previously reported $400 million in cash given in conjunction with U.S. hostages held in Iran being freed, including Washington Post journalist Jason Rezaian, 2 additional cash payments totaling $1.3 billion were made, as first reported by this morning's Wall Street Journal. Obama administration officials note that the $1.7 billion belongs to Iran, having been awarded by the Hague Tribunal, stemming from the U.S. not delivering fighter jets that Iran had paid for before the 1979 Iranian Revolution. On CNN earlier today, Deputy Secretary of State Tony Blinken acknowledged that no one can guarantee that none of the cash payment will end up funding Iran-backed terrorist groups.
We can't say that not one single dollar will go there. What we can say, based on what we've seen so far, is that virtually all of it is going into the economy, not into the military.
Critics say the transaction is tantamount to ransom, encouraging future hostage-taking, a charge the State Department denies. Rather, officials argue it was leverage to make sure the hostages were returned. The Treasury Department has said that the payments had to be made in cash, Swiss francs, euros, and other currencies, because sanctions have been so effective at isolating Iran from the world's financial systems.
Spokesman John Kirby this morning that said the funds were transferred to Iran were related solely to the settlement of a long-standing claim at the U.S.-Iran Claims Tribunal at The Hague. And so he went on to say that this was not a quid pro quo, and you heard White House spokesman Josh Earnest just say that just moments ago. But obviously the timing is coincidental, because while these negotiations about that settlement were going on, the U.S. was also negotiating at the same time to release those 4 prisoners and that Iranian nuclear deal. So officials say, yes, all of this dovetailed together and came together at the same time. No quid pro quo, but certainly the Iranians were looking for something to happen at that time to make it look as if they were getting something.
I mean, the difficult part of the story from the very beginning was the administration did announce back in January this $1.7 billion payment. But as far as the specifics, the mechanics, they've refused to answer, like, when did the money arrive? How was it spent? Was it sent in cash? Until through our reporting, we found out that actually this money was sent in pallets of cash on a plane secretly. And to this day, we're still trying to figure out the timing. When did this money arrive? And through this reporting, there is indications that it was sequenced, that basically these Americans weren't going to be released until that money arrived. So then it becomes a question, really, of timing.
So which leads you to believe that there was a quid pro quo, that the prisoners wouldn't be released until the cash was in hand? I mean,
that is part of what we're seeing. I mean, it is hard because various elements are true. And the White House says this was a decades-old, dispute over financing, over this arms deal. That is true. There are a lot of different disputes that are continuing between Iran and the U.S. on the financial side. But the particulars of how this was paid and when the money got there is still, they refuse to answer those questions. And they could easily resolve this by just saying, yeah, the money arrived then, it was paid in cash, and it was no problem. But if you watch the State Department transcript today, they were repeatedly asked, and they would just not answer that question. But there was a lot of concern about the optics and how the Iranian side would spin it, that they were going to basically take the timing and the arrival of cash as a sign that this was ransom or a quid pro quo, and that they'd use this possibly in future cases. And I think what a lot of people in the U.S. government are concerned of, in the last 6 months, last year there have been 3 more Iranian Americans taken prisoner. There are another 3 European and Canadian Iranian nationals who have been taken prisoner in the last, I think, 3 months. So it's a cycle. And when you look back on the history of the United States-Iranian relations, going back to the revolution, you see this cycle. You know, the American diplomats who were taken hostage, the resolution for that was partly the unfreezing of assets in the United States that were the Shah's money. The 3 hikers who were taken prisoner in 2009, their release was also tied to both a prisoner exchange and cash being paid. So it's not like this is a one-off. If you take a step back, it is a longer cycle.